Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. So, welcome back to the second part of our episode with Fiona Challis. Now, if you haven't watched the first part, you really need to go back and check this out, because it will put everything we're going to talk about today into perspective. And it's a really, really great chat anyway. So please check out part one, which was posted a week ago, and then come back and listen to this again. So welcome back, Fiona.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me again. I feel very honored.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. It's just lovely to hear your beautiful Irish lilt.
Oh, even though I live in England.
Even though you live in England. I think it's one of those accents that's quite hard to lose, isn't it?
Definitely. Some people want to lose it, but I've never have, so I've always kept it.
No, definitely don't lose it. Definitely don't lose it. Okay, so today we're having the second part, and we're talking about your book. Happiness, no, not the Happiness Code, Eat, Well, Self-Love. And I've just about finished it, and it is
good.
Fantastic book. And in it you talk about your trademarked program, which is called the Happiness Code. Tell us more, Fiona.
Yeah, so the Happiness Code, it kind of actually came about kind of as an accident, Jill, because what happened was when I finished my own healing journey, and I say finished, but I got to a stage where I felt I was okay again, considering the trauma I'd experienced with that narcissist. And I kind of got to a point where I thought, okay, I feel like I'll still stay on the healing journey, but I feel like I'm okay now to get unstuck and start moving forward in life. And I started to think about writing the book. So I started to map out what were the steps that I went through in my own healing journey that made the most profound impact to my own journey. And I was amazed, honestly, because when I actually wrote it down, I noticed that the first letter of every single step, when I put them together, is spelled the word happiness.
It's just so clever, isn't it? It's just so clever.
It was just a complete coincidence. And I'm like, I can't believe that it spells happiness. And then I thought, oh my God, I have to trademark this. This has to be the name of the program.
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant name for a program. And I love the quote that you've got in the book by Joe Dispenza. I mean, I love Joe Dispenza anyway.
Yeah.
But the quote, the process of change requires unlearning. It requires breaking free from the old beliefs, patterns, and habits of the old self that are keeping you stuck, and reinventing a new loving and empowering self. And it's so true, isn't it?
True.
So true. We cannot, do you know, I hate to hear people blaming outside things for things that are happening to them. It's that victim mentality, and we need to be the ones to change ourselves. And it is very possible to do, although it can take a huge amount of work, as you well know, because you've been through it. and I think we're always on this continuous journey of learning and changing, and you know, I still find if I go a few days without meditating and journaling, then I start to feel out of sorts. It's just so important.
It's a journey, not a destination, as they say.
Absolutely, it's a journey, not a destination. So what we're going to do in this episode is Fiona's going to tell us a little bit about each of the steps in the Happiness Code, and we'll start at the beginning. And the letter H is for healing your past wounds. Fiona, what's a past wound?
So it was very much like what you were just saying there with the Joe Dispenza quote. So, you know, when we're growing up, you know, as young children, you form beliefs, you form habits, you form lots of different things about you when you're growing up. You form things in other relationships. And sometimes you actually don't even become aware of any of those wounds that you've kind of picked up along the way. You don't become aware of them until you start to do this inner work. And it's when you look back, and you look back at your childhood, you look back on your past relationships, and you start to connect those dots together, and you start to realize, actually, there's some things in there that I need to change about me, because if I change those things, it's going to change all the other things around me as well. So very much like what we were just talking about, your wounds from the past are, what are the wounds that you're carrying that you need to let go of? You perhaps need to unlearn them and relearn a new way. Because when you got rid of those wounds, you're able to go into relationships from a place of worth rather than a place of wound. Think of it like this. You have some ladies, especially me, I was exactly like that. You go from one relationship to the next, but you still carry the same baggage with you. It's like, you know, the airport carousel with all the bags on it. It's like you're going on another trip, but it's the same baggage you're taking with you. And at some point, you have to go over and pick the bloody bag up and say, I'm not carrying it with me anymore. Get rid of it.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. And I think we said in the last episode of this how sometimes if you have one after another disastrous relationship with the same things going wrong, you need to look and think, what's the one thing
What's the one thing that's the same?
The same in each, and it's you, it's us that really need to change. No, that's great. That's great. Step 2 is attachment styles. Can you explain to us what an attachment style is?
Yeah, so this is a biggie, especially in relationships. So when you're growing up as a child, you learn how to form an attachment to your caregivers. So your mom, your dad, sisters, brothers, or whoever brought you up, basically. But from a very young age, because we're wired for love and connection, we learn how to form an attachment. And will form one of 4 attachments based on the family dynamics that you're brought up in. So securely attached is brilliant because it means you have a really safe connection with you and your caregivers. The anxious attachment is where you're never quite sure what's going on. Maybe a fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. Your caregivers are there for you one minute, they're not the next. So you have a really anxious attachment style, and in relationships that can play lots of havoc. The next one is you can be avoidant. So an avoidant one is where you're never quite sure what's going on. So you kind of avoid everything and just keep yourself hidden and keep yourself back. Because if you keep yourself hidden and back, nobody's going to be able to hurt you. And then when people do get too close, you become very suspicious. Like you think everybody's out to get you. You think everyone's out to hurt you. So that's the avoidant attachment style. And then the fearful is a mix of both. A mix of the avoidant and a mix of the anxious attachment style. So ideally, we all want to be securely attached. But over 50% of women have an insecure attachment style, which is either the anxious, fearful, or avoidant. So that's over half of us
Wow.
have that attachment style. And in relationships, what happens is, especially anxious, if you're anxiously attached, what happens is you end up doing things like people pleasing because you're so anxious that you want them to stay with you that you start doing stuff to make sure they do. So you'll people please, overgive, overfix, because you're just so anxious, you're holding on to it for dear life. And that's how it plays out in relationships.
Yeah, gosh, it's a real eye-opener, isn't it? Because as you say, we all fit into one, but sometimes it's quite hard to work out which one unless someone explains it to you like that.
And I do have a free quiz actually, so perhaps I'll put a link in here. I created a free quiz that will help you to identify which one of the attachment styles you are. And actually with the book, you do get some bonuses. You get £350 worth of bonuses with the book, and one of them is the attachment style overview.
Brilliant. So we will make sure that link goes in. So let's move on to step 3. The P stands for programming and beliefs. So let's talk about limiting beliefs, which I know is a biggie for me. What are they and how can we change them?
So the beliefs are, things you form. You form these beliefs, of course, when you're growing up and from other relationships and everything else. But when you're forming beliefs that are actually going to hinder you, not help you, at some point you have to go and visit that belief and say, well, where did that actually come from? And is it still true in my life today? So as an example, one of the exercises I get women to do when we're in a workshop is I'll give them a statement as an example. Finish this sentence. Men are. What comes up for you? Love is. What comes up for you? Relationships are. What comes up for you? And most of the time, if you've had a hard time with relationships before, or you haven't had a great role model to show you what true, healthy, happy love and relationships look like, you end up saying love is hard, relationships are painful. Men are, well, I won't swear.
I know, I was just thinking of what I'd say there.
I won't swear. But normally, that's what comes up. So imagine you're going into a relationship with a set of those beliefs that are saying, I actually don't trust relationships, and I don't trust men, and I don't trust love. But I'm going to put a big pretend mask on in front of me to pretend that I do like it. But those beliefs always come true. They
Yeah.
always come true.
Yeah, they do, don't they? And there's nothing you can do to stop them until you change them. I mean, for me, I know it was a fear of abandonment because my parents separated when I was 11, divorced when I was 12, and I didn't see my dad for 18 years. And never ever seen him again. But I, as an adult, went out of my way to find him. So
yeah, that's the same with me, actually. I had the same.
Yeah.
But that's where all of the programming starts, your pattern starts, your anxious attachment style starts from there.
Yeah. And there's some good exercises in the book that will help people to change and to get over that, aren't there?
Yes, yeah. I mean, kind of the core beliefs that most women that I work with have, Jill, is they come down to one of three core beliefs they've formed. I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, and I'm not lovable. So they're the first three beliefs that we have to start to change, because if you're going into a relationship thinking you're not enough, you're not lovable, and you're not worthy, it's never going to work out. So work on you first, work on building that empowering belief, making sure that you believe in yourself, build your self-worth back up, build your self-esteem back up, and then you're ready to go into another relationship.
Yeah, good advice. And I think if people work through these, it's going to help them not just in their relationships, it's going to help them throughout life. If they're running a business or have a career, that if they have those beliefs that they're not worthy, they're not good enough, then it's
it is. I mean, it is. It helps everything. Your relationship with work, children, colleagues. It helps with everything. But this is the foundation. Work with you first.
Yeah, definitely. Step 4, Fiona, is protector parts. What are our protector parts?
So this is really interesting, this part. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't even aware of this part of you before I even started doing this work. But when you're growing up and in your relationships, you form a part of you. See it as like a protector part that stands in front of you. And this protector part kind of really susses out every relationship or every situation you're going into. And it's going to say, is it safe or is it not safe for me to show myself? And if it's not safe for you to show yourself, what happens is one of your protector parts come up and it stands in the way of you going to do what you want to do. So as an example, for business owners, it happens a huge amount where maybe putting yourself out there or speaking up, perhaps when you were a child growing up, it wasn't actually safe for you to speak up, or you were always told children should be seen and not heard. So when you're in business and somebody says, would you like to come on a podcast with Jill? They go, no, protector part comes up and goes, not safe to speak up, so don't do it. And it's so ingrained in us, you don't even see it happening. It's a part of you that until you work on the subconscious mind and until you go back in and find out what is that protector part, what is it trying to keep you to do? Perhaps it's trying to keep you playing small because it thinks it's safer for you to keep playing small. But you have to really go into the subconscious mind. You need to meet the part. You need to find out when it came into your life, find out what it thought it was doing because it thought it was helping you. And then you need to see it as like upgrading the job spec. So the easiest way I describe it to people, it's like this part of you came into your life to protect you at a certain age in your life. And it has a job description that is perhaps 30 years old, 40 years old. I mean, I'm what, 48 now? So it's been in my life for all that time, but as a child, it might have helped me. As an adult, it's actually hurting me. So you almost need to go in and talk to it, meet it, give it a voice, and then either upgrade the role or ask it to go because you're safe without it.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people call it shadow work. I call it parts work.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it leads really nicely onto step 5, doesn't it? About inner child. So meeting your inner child. And we all have our inner child, but like so many of us, we don't recall much from our childhood. So how can we get in touch with our inner child?
So again, with your inner child, it's quite deep work to do, actually, the inner child work. So I would always say do it with a trained professional, because depending on obviously what your childhood was like, some things can come up for you. But the best thing to do is actually to first of all acknowledge that you do have an inner child, because some of us don't even acknowledge that we have one, but we all have one. I actually keep mine here, Jill, because my one comes up a lot. So I actually keep mine in front of me, and she comes to work with me every day. That's little Fee.
Oh. Oh.
But you almost need to kind of get back in touch with that inner child. You need to build that connection back to the inner child. And then you need to go through a reparenting process where actually you become the loving parent. You become the person to keep her safe and to look after her, because then you've got full responsibility over everything that happens to you and your inner child. And the reparenting process is beautiful. It's a really, really lovely, lovely process to go through.
Oh, no, that sounds perfect. And yeah, again, you know, when you don't remember your childhood because of some sort of trauma, it's
Yeah.
actually hard to do anything unless someone can help you uncover that. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really
And she comes up a lot, honestly. I mean, I just did an inner child workshop with a lovely group of ladies, again, all business owners. And their inner child was coming up a lot, making them play small all the time, and arguing back with people, and not accepting what's happened, or burying their head in the sand because they didn't want to deal with stuff. That's all your inner child that keeps coming up, basically saying, listen to me and talk to me, or I'm going to keep coming back up.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think back, especially, you know, I'm a lot older than you, but when I was a child, it was always children should be seen and not
Yeah,
heard. It was always boys were better than girls. That was I
yeah,
know there's still inequality, but that was a huge thing. I remember parents who used to send their son to a private school, but their daughters would just go to the state school.
yeah,
And
yeah. That happened a lot.
shocking, isn't it? Absolutely shocking. So yeah, there are lots of things that we'll have from our childhood that really need uncovering and dealing with.
Yeah,
Step number six is the nervous system regulation. And again, I think you've got a great quote in the book by Stephen Porges, if I've pronounced that right, about
yeah,
trauma. And he says that trauma is not about the event, it's about the individual's response. It's disrespectful to not understand that the individual's nervous system is making an unconscious evaluation of life threat. It's not conscious and
yeah.
it's not voluntary, it's the body's reaction. So, you know, I feel understanding that should help us to realize that we need to change our programming. And we have already touched on that, but how can this stage in the process, this step, actually help people with that?
So this is a huge one for me. And actually, I know I keep saying they were all huge, but they were. But this particular step, the nervous system work for me, this was the missing piece of the puzzle for me, because my healing journey, just to get over the trauma I had been through, Jill, took me over 3 years to go through. And I had tried so much. I had tried talk therapy, I tried counseling, I had tried coaching, I had tried so many things. And I'd get to a point where I'd feel like, okay, I think I'm good, I think I'm ready to go. And then I'd try and go into a relationship again, and it would just get stuck. And I would be so worried, I wouldn't even go on a date. And everything I thought was working, as soon as I tried to move forward, it was just like there was an invisible wall in front of me that just said, no, you're not going for it. And it was only when I found out more about the nervous system work and nervous system regulation that I began to understand, right, I've healed my head, I've healed my heart, I've healed my mind, but I forgot about my body.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's why the nervous system work is so important. And that's what Stephen's saying there, because your body holds on to so much trauma. And again, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be a big T trauma, as they call it. It could just be you were bullied at school.
yeah,
Somebody didn't look after you properly when you were younger. It could be as small as somebody somebody just didn't acknowledge you when you were growing up, when you felt like something was wrong with you. That trauma stores in your body.
Yeah.
And then when you try to move forward in life, what happens is, and the easiest way I like to describe it is, you have a security guard, a private security guard that stands in front of you like this. And every time you go into a new relationship or you try something new in life, the security guard almost does like a Google search. So they do a Google search and they say, the last time Fiona tried that, was it safe, life-threatening, or dangerous? And if the security guard goes, nope, last time she did that, she got hurt, so don't let her do it. And then your nervous system puts you into a trauma response. And the trauma responses, well, most people will be aware of freeze, fight, or flight mode. You're aware of those ones.
Yeah.
And then there's different states that that security guard will put you into. So ventral is the safe state, that's a regulated state. But the other ones are sympathetic, dorsal, and a freeze state. And if you're put into any of those dysregulated states, what will happen is you'll try to move forward, but that wall comes up and you get stuck. So you need to talk to your nervous system in a language it understands, because it doesn't actually understand verbal communication. It only understands a language that we call somatics. And when you learn to talk to it in the language it understands, then you can put yourself back into a regulated state, drop the wall, and move forward. But you have to learn how to talk to it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm trying to simplify it because there's so much science out there about it.
I know. And that's, I mean, you were trained by Marissa, and, you know, the things that she teaches are just so incredible, aren't they?
Yeah.
The silly little things that can, I remember, gosh, I must have only been 14, maybe 14, 15. And I remember being out with a gang of young people at an outdoor pool. It was summer holidays. And this one boy said to me something about me having a big nose.
Right.
And I can't even remember the context now, because how could anyone be so rude as to say that?
So bad.
But for like the next 20 years, every time I looked in the mirror, all I could see was a big nose.
It sticks with you because it just stays in you, stays in your memory, stays in your whole body.
It's so
I hope
strange.
you got him back later on, Jill.
Oh God, yeah, I'm sure Karma will have got him. Oh.
But you know, just one thing on Marissa there, because she taught me something that actually really stuck with me when I was doing this work as well. And again, it's about it staying in your body. So one of her favorite sayings is, a feeling that cannot be expressed with tears will find a way to weep through other organs.
Wow.
So when you hold something in your body, like you're holding that in all the time, because you're not able to express it, it's going to find a way to come out in other organs of your body, which is why so many women have gut health problems, we have autoimmune problems, because we're suppressing stuff. And when you suppress it, it's going to come out in another way.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I remember hearing once that people who end up with problems with their chest, their heart, or their lung, it's usually related to a lack of love in childhood.
Yes, lack of love and fear. The lungs are always fear.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I mean, and when you study the parts of the body and you see like anything, even from, I remember I used to get really like tight jaws. I used to get a really tight jaw, like a locked jaw. And I used to get a really sore neck just down the right-hand side of it. And then when I understood polyvagal theory, and I understood where these different nervous systems sat in your body, for me, that's sympathetic. And when your nervous system is dysregulated, your jaw locks up, your neck gets tight, your right shoulder gets tight. And when you understand how the body works with all of that, then you're able to say, okay, now I can link it back. Now I know what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing work. I love it.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, I could spend all day, every day reading about it. I just find it all so interesting. Let's move on to step 7. So step 7 is embodied and somatic healing. What's somatic healing?
So somatic healing is speaking to the nervous system in the language it understands. So that's the language, it's called somatics. And somatics is basically making sure that you are not just doing things like talk therapy, because talk therapy can help for some parts. CBD can help with some parts, you know, there's counseling can help with some parts, but if you want to have an embodied healing approach, You have to heal at a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level. And that means you need to use all of these therapies together and introduce somatic healing, because somatic healing is the body part.
Ah, okay.
That's the easiest way to describe it. So, for example, when I had tried so much already, and to be honest, most women who come to work with me, Jill, they have tried so much already. They've done therapy, they've done counseling, they've done so much, and they still don't feel ready. And it's because they haven't taken that somatic and that embodied approach.
Ah, fascinating. It is, oh, it's mind-blowing. Let's look, because we are running out of time. So
We
let's
talk too much.
I know. So let's move on to step 8, which is secure self. Now, this is a great step, as it really is the start of really moving forward for people when they get this far and helping them get what they want. How can we design the life and the relationships that we want?
Well, it's a really good question, because one of the exercises I do with ladies, Jill, is I say, okay, what kind of partner would you really like to be with? What kind of relationship would you really like to be? And list all the characteristics and list everything that you want to have in your marriage, your partnership, whatever it is. Now look inside yourself and ask yourself if you've got all those characteristics, because you need to be the person you want to be with. That's how you attract and keep that type of person into your life. So secure self is really doing some inner work on yourself and saying, what do I want? What do I really want? Forget about the past now. Going forward with a clean slate, what do I want? What does a secure me, a secure relationship, and a secure future look like? And we design everything out, including getting to know yourself, what's important to you going forward. So, identifying your values. What do you value? How do you know you're going to choose a partner that has similar values to you to make it work better? What's your love language? When's the last time people sat down and did that?
Yeah. And like attracts like. So you do need to make sure you've got those qualities inside you, don't you, to be able to
Absolutely. In fact, I was just on another podcast there last week, and a lot of the ladies that were on the podcast, they were saying, I just want to be with somebody who'll accept me for just being me, who'll love me for just being me. So when I look back at it and I put them through the exercise and I said, well, who are you? Who's the person that you want to be? Are you showing up as the real you in relationships, or are you showing up as somebody you think that partner wants to be with? Are you showing up as somebody completely different? Because the reason that we want people to love us just as we are is because we don't love us just as we are.
Yeah.
And it's hard hitting.
Very hard hitting. Very hard hitting.
But true.
Yeah, but very true. Very true. And yeah, okay. So step 9, the final step, self-love, the ultimate goal. What is true self-love and self-acceptance?
Perfect. So if you've got this far in the journey, you're showing yourself self-love. You went through the other 8 steps. But yeah, I mean, true self-love, Jill, we think it's, bubble baths and nice food and restaurants and everything else. It's much, much more than that. It's taking that time to become self-aware of everything that's going on in your life and relationships in the first place, then accepting it and saying, well, actually, this happened. This is me. You can't change the past, but you can the future. And being willing to look within and do that. Building your self-worth back up again. And when you build your self-worth back up, your self-esteem is also going to come with it. And then true self-love in relationships is setting boundaries, making sure you're really clear. What will you accept? What's a deal breaker? And what don't you want? And actually being really clear on, these are my boundaries, and respecting yourself enough to stand by them. Yeah. And then when you do all of that, that's where you lead to self-love.
Yeah, very good advice, very good way of describing it. And because we are nearly out of time, let's just think, but if people buy the book and they work through it, which would be amazing, that will really, really help them. But you also have a free masterclass. So can you tell us a little bit about your free masterclass, please?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, in the book is kind of therapy in a book, but the masterclass is kind of bringing it to life a little bit more for you. So the masterclass I run is from heartbreak to happiness in 90 days. Because my journey took me 3 years. I don't want that for any other woman. And I really feel I've cracked this happiness code now. So when you take these steps, and I take ladies through those steps in a full 90-day period, and when you come through the other side of it, we actually measure your happiness at the other side to see how much happier you are once you implement these steps. And the masterclass talks you through what has to happen in each of those steps. But we also measure, where are you on your healing journey today? Because there's different stages of healing. So we kind of look at, where are you today? Where do you want to be? What are the steps you have to take to get there? And the masterclass takes you through that.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, Fiona, we will post a link up to where people can get the book and the free resources, because I know there's hundreds of pounds worth of free resources with the book, how they can access the program. Have you got one final quick piece of advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for anybody who is going through a hard time at the moment in relationships, healing doesn't have to be a long, lonely journey like it was for me. There are so many other options available today. So I would say use this beautiful community of women you have around you, get in touch with everybody here, get in touch with me, because it really doesn't have to be a long, drawn out, lonely process like it was for me. There is so many more things we can do if you just have that step-by-step guide. Just makes it quicker, easier, less painful.
Fiona, brilliant advice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, and thank you for having me back again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you, Jill. See you next time.
Bye. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.